What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with another Destiny 2 video, this time to talk about episode Heresy Act 3. As far as we know, this is said to be the longest act of the episode so far, but it will come with some unique events and of course is paving the way to the next expansion for the game. So as far as we know, there'll be some pretty interesting revelations during Act 3, both in terms of the game right now, but also reveals, details, and the actual gameplay lead-in to the next expansion drop. So right here we're going to round up everything we can expect. Some of the important dates, but primarily the new content, updates and changes to the game, exotic upgrades, new quests, as well as an upcoming mystery that will drop during Act 3, and a handful of other items. So if you guys enjoy this video, feel free to get subscribed to the channel, as half of the viewers on this channel haven't yet done that. It really does help me out, but otherwise, now let's get into it. And so starting out, as we understand it, one of the first things that we'll get to do as part of Act 3 will be the return of the Sunless Cell Strike. So obviously it will be available as a standard strike, but also a Nightfall and Grandmaster, which will certainly make things interesting. Some folks actually got to access this early when Bungie released it by accident, so you may have seen some gameplay clips of it here and there. This is some gameplay shared by Trance. Doesn't go into massive spoilers for folks who haven't experienced it before, but of course if you remember it from back in the Taken King era, obviously it's cool to see it updated in Destiny 2. That is just one component of Heresy Act 3. Of course, additionally, we'll see the continuation of the main story, so we'll be getting weekly story steps again. Ultimately, that will lead us to the conclusion for Heresy, which as far as we know will be connected fairly significantly to the next expansion, so things are bound to get pretty interesting on that front. Otherwise, obviously, we won't want to go into spoilers in this video, but moving on to other content, at the launch of Act 3, which will be on April 1st, we'll also see the return of Iron Banner for the second time in the episode. So the event will run from April 1st up until the 8th, then again from the 29th of April to the 6th of May, which will be the third and final Iron Banner. I feel like May 6th may be an important date, as a lot of Bungie rewards actually expire on that date as well. That doesn't mean obviously we're going to get an expansion for Destiny 2 at that point, but could potentially be a point in time where the next lot of content for Act 3 starts rolling out, such as the Rite of the Nine and stuff. We'll touch on that in a moment. Obviously it isn't confirmed yet, but in terms of the Act 3 artifact perks, these were previewed a little while back by Bungie Leaks, which will include Unstoppable Rocket Launcher and Gold from Lead. Picking up special ammo with Gold from Lead has a chance to grant heavy ammo, plus there is Vile Weave, where targets hit by tangles are severed, and it reduces the tangle cooldown by picking one up. On top of that though, there is To Shreds, where dealing sustained damage to severed targets unravels them, and defeating a severed target creates a hotspot of strand energy, granting Woven Mail to nearby allies for a short duration. And lastly, Perpetual Destruction, where rapid final blows with non-exotic rocket launchers refund ammo and increase reload speed for a short duration. And so those sound pretty cool. Nice that we're getting a bit of strand focus as well as the rocket launchers. Another random thing set to drop in Act 3 though would be the unreleased Wizard armor sets from Festival of the Lost last year. So there were two variants that the community could vote for, and the variants that weren't originally released with the event will be dropping in Act 3, available for 1500 silver or 6000 bright dust, according to the rotation at the moment. So those will be a thing if you're looking forward to them. Otherwise, we do know we'll get two more Barrow Dyad Catalyst upgrades, so they will once again be as part of quests. So there is a Silken Path, where the first step requires us to collect all of the Ravenous Worm Spawn. Those are the worms that can be found around the Dreadnaught. And after that, we'll need to complete the exotic mission Derealize with the Barrow Dyad SMG equipped. There's also a 100-fold path, and for that one, we need to collect all of the Tithing Worm Spawn. So that's all of the different variants of collectible worms on the Dreadnaught. And the second step for that is currently classified, but we do know that the old starting area from the Dreadnaught in the Taken King is also going to be featured in the Nether for Act 3, so the Nether will get another reasonably significant update. This time, it's an entirely new bubble, so while we currently have 4 bubbles in the Nether, that will become 5 with Act 3, and we even saw some clips in that area in the original trailer for Heresy. That isn't the only way I'm predicting this. Obviously, those clips could just be from a mission or something like that, but we know through other sources that there is an additional area on the Dreadnaught set to open up, so that's going to be pretty cool. And beyond that sort of initial release focusing largely on Heresy content, there will be what Bungie referred to as a kind of late season refresh. One of the things they'll introduce then is the Inquisitor returning to Trials of Osiris with updated perks. You can see those on the screen. And around that time is when we'll get some of the other content that Bungie had previewed for Act 3, which includes the Heavy Metal game mode, where players will be able to play as Briggs and Drake tanks. So that's going to be something pretty different. There's a unique emblem linked to that particular game mode, or the content that will roll out later in Act 3, we can see it on screen, and the same icon is present on a title seal that Bungie Leaks shared as well. So it is going to be a kind of mini Into the Light event as far as we know. We know that Rite of the Nine will be introduced then as well, but there'll also be an additional mystery, which Bungie Leaks shared here, referred to as The Game. We won't go into a massive number of spoilers, but it appears to be some kind of puzzle linked to both the Nine and the Heresy storyline in some way. So obviously, all of these things are going to kind of piece together over the course of time, and there'll be a unique emblem linked to that puzzle as well called Enigmatology. So that's pretty cool. Then there is Rite of the Nine itself. And this will be a free-to-play endgame event, which will reintroduce 3 dungeons with updated rewards. So Spire of the Watcher, Prophecy, and Ghosts of the Deep will return, and as Bungie outlined, they'll come with adept variants of their weapons, and the weapons will have updated perks. So it's going to be really cool to check those out. And the third Spire 9 associated social space will also return for this event. There we'll be able to interact with the Emissary of the Nine, who's obviously going to be the vendor for this content. And each of those dungeons will also have 3 different difficulty modes, so there'll be a sort of new player-friendly mode or a solo player-friendly version of these dungeons for the first time, which also includes tooltips advising how to actually complete some of the encounters. So Bungie testing some new things here, and potentially they might use successful components of this in future content somehow, but it will mean for less sort of dungeon or end game savvy players or folks who have not jumped into that stuff before, it's going to give a sort of softer introduction to them, which is pretty cool. But the dungeons will also have a more standard version, which is kind of akin to the versions that we have now, and then a more contest-style version of them as well, which is where the adept versions of the dungeon weapons will be dropping from. So obviously this will be a really interesting time in the game, and the event overall is designed to sort of fill the gap and get players interested in the game again ahead of the next expansion. So almost certainly during Act 3, whether it's earlier or later, there will eventually be some info about the next expansion, Apollo. And so the approach for this third act of the final episode of the year is certainly going to be different to what we've seen in other episodes. It'll maybe have a slightly slower start than some acts that we've had in the past. However, Bungie appear to be very much focused on keeping players engaged over the 2 or 3 month period that Act 3 will kind of be the focus for the game. So it's going to come in different phases. And for any folks who've enjoyed Heresy so far, it looks like the quality of the content is going to stay, pretty high. And then obviously the Rite of the Nine stuff, Heavy Metal, and the late season refresh is the second part, which obviously being free to play, Bungie are hoping to bring back more players than perhaps even jumped in initially with Heresy as they begin to talk about the next expansion. So that's kind of an overview of what we can expect, really. Share any thoughts you have on it down in the comment section, and as always, I'll keep you up to date as we get additional details, roadmap info, reveals, and the new content. So get subscribed, hit the notification bell as well, and I will keep you up to date. If you've enjoyed the video, like I said, give us any of your thoughts and a rating down below, as that would be much appreciated. But otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.